So I'll create and start the recording here. I'm not really going to demo that much today because it's an easy lab and you guys can start solving these on your own. All right, so we are recording. So this week, let's go to Brightspace. We can go to 372. And you should now have a good sense of how to move around in Linux, where everything is. You have some commands, etc. So you have a basic sense of that and basic sense of scripting. So now we start to look at more advanced topics, really, more complex concepts. So we're going to start today with, so we've done this, Scapy. I believe you have a homework assignment for this. Yeah. So make sure to work on those. And today you're just working on account management. Okay. So it's a very important classic topic in a sysadmin course, Linux, whatever it is, to create accounts, right? So that's the idea. So I'll go over the lab. Again, as usual, read the PowerPoint slides for the managerial suggestions related to account management. And I'll go over kind of the technical one here. So this is the Word doc. Let's open it. And in a second, I'll start the virtual machine. I'll walk you through a few things. There is a scripting example for this one. Um, or homework assignment. I don't think I'll change anything. I'll use this document pretty much as is. It's pretty good. All right, so as usual, it's got the bullet format. And then you have one scripting problem. So I'll start there, right? So let's start with, this is like the classic example of why automation is really good when you're dealing with servers and sysadmin. I made it 30 students to make it easy for you guys, but it could just as easily be 3,000, right? And so you can see how that would be a lot of work to have to do that manually. So the idea is, assume you're a system administrator for high school or something, you're having a seminar over the weekend for 30 students. You need to create user accounts for all students on your Linux Ubuntu server. Since you're very busy, you would like to automate this task. So assume you have a text file. Assume you have a text file containing the list of all 30 students. So using Python, write a Python script that can read the users from the text file and create accounts. Include your script and evidence that the script worked, and this is to be completed by a student. So what you need to show kind of at the end is a screenshot where you go to the virtual machine and it shows a list of all the students basically that you've created. So you can see that there. So I'll demo some of these ideas. So let me actually start the VM for this so that we can take a look at that. But yeah, but that's the lab. You'll be dealing with a lot of things related to users. So here I have, the VM. When you guys create your second VM, it'll show. So you'll have these two here. All right. The virtual machine is starting. Okay. Here we have it. Yeah, go ahead, please. I don't go by numbers. There's no way that I can know what lab is 7 and what lab is 5, so I go by the name. So this, I can tell you this is week 6, but I go by name. So this is like the user account management lab, right? So that's it. But yeah, I definitely don't have numbers. So it's this one. So if you want to find it in the table of contents, you can go here. Then you can go to this module right after exam 1. It's called account management. You can click on that one, and it's going to be this Word document. Yeah, see how it says lab week 4? And this is from in the past. And then I would sometimes end up with a lab 3 that was on week 4 in module 7 or something like that. Do you see what I'm saying? Because labs are longer, shorter, and so this is just the remnant of that. And I definitely please ignore these, but just go but I've modified them to have topics, which is sane. The other thing is insane. All right. Anyway, so yeah, so let this is a nice lab actually. Like I said, it's pretty complete. So I think we were waiting for the virtual machine to start. So you can see actually, this is also something that you will do in this lab. You'll create a dummy 2. So that's one of the examples, create an account called dummy 2. So you'll see things like that. When you do the script, since you're creating 30 accounts, uh, okay, there we go, a little slow. So if you go to this upper right-hand corner here, somewhere on here, where is it that it shows the account? Here. Just maybe it's when you created a whole, but I have 2, I guess. So I should show somewhere on here it shows when you have multiple accounts created. So you'll see as you start creating accounts, it'll start showing. Just can't see it here. It still shows the same thing. Anyway, we'll get to it. But yeah, so it's somewhere it can show that you've created a whole bunch of accounts. You can go to the home folder also where you would have a whole bunch of home folder accounts and so on. All right, so let's start getting into the lab essentially and get a feel for it. Like I said, it shouldn't be too bad. Navigate into the desktop. All right, and then we can go into, so let's see, this is our current folder. Network SCAPI is the last thing we did. If you have questions about any of the previous labs also, you'll have time. It's kind of like an open lab today, so I'll assign this one. But if you have questions about other things, I'm happy to help you. All right, so I'll do that. But I want to, for those of you that are finished, right, with that one, start working on this one. Okay, so I'll just walk you through it. Let me create, I guess, a folder. I'm just going to call it accounts, account management, maybe. Yeah, so let's do that. So then we can CD into it. And I'll just walk you through like skeleton of the script. All right, so now let's look at the document itself. And I'll kind of do a high overview of it. So let's see. So it's basically, as I said, user account management. As you know, everything in Unix is about permissions. User accounts are created for everything. Programs have user accounts, right? So you need something like that, that principle to be able to operate. So let's start reading through it. So Ubuntu developers made a conscientious decision to disable the administrative root account by default in Ubuntu installations. This does not mean that the root account has been deleted or that it may not be accessed. It merely has been given a password which matches no possible encrypted value, therefore may not log in directly by itself. So why do you think, first of all, that the root account is disabled by default in a Unix operating system? Yeah, go ahead. But seed is an administrator. See, you can sudo with your seed account and get administrative privileges. It has the same power as root. Yeah, you're sort of there. Anyone else? It's about accountability and auditing. So the idea is if there was in the past, I'm sure there was one root account, and what would happen? Let's say all of you are administrators for this place. What do? You log into root because you know the password as root and you do things, right? And then you do something, and then you do the opposite and switch it, and then nobody knows who did what. Do you know what I mean? And so that's why root is disabled, and instead this idea of the sudoers group was created. So now each of you, if you're administrators, you're still doing it under your own account. And if you do now something and you do the opposite, you can trace it back and see why, it's not that either one of you was wrong, but you understand why it was done. Does that make sense? So that's like auditing for auditing purposes. That's it. Makes sense. A pretty simple common sense thing, but the root the that's one of the reasons. So instead, users are encouraged to make use of a tool by the name of sudo, which you guys have been using and are familiar with at this point, to carry out system administration duties. Sudo allows an authorized user, which it means that somebody is in the sudoers group, and that's actually one of the things that you're going to learn in this lab today. You're going to explore the sudoers group, right? So remember that we have actual accounts and we have groups, and they're kind of essentially similar. And as everything in filing, you'll go to a file where there's groups, you find the sudoers group, and you see the accounts that are in there. All right, so instead, users first make use of a tool by the name of sudo to carry out system administrative duties. Sudo allows an authorized user to temporarily elevate their privileges using their own password, instead of having to know the password belonging to the root account. This simple yet effective methodology provides accountability for all user actions and gives the administrator granular control over which actions a user can perform with said privileges. Pretty clear. All right. So you guys know how to use it. So if for some reason you wish, now here on bullet 4, you'll do this in your lab, right? So make sure you do this and show evidence that you did it by taking a screenshot. So I'll let you guys work on this part. So if for some reason you wish to enable the root account, you simply have to give it a password. Okay, so essentially you do sudo pass wd, and that by default enables root. Okay, make sense? Yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's the idea. Sudo will prompt you for your password and then ask you to supply a new password for root as shown below. Okay, so this may change a little bit, but in essence, it'll be similar to that. Any questions on this part? Pretty easy, right? All right, to disable a root account, use the following syntax. So you can see sudo pass wd -l root. Okay. By default, the initial user created by the Ubuntu installer is a member of the group admin, which is added to the file etc sudoers as an authorized sudo user. If you wish to give any other account full root access through sudo, simply add them to the admin group. So I encourage you to play with that, create an account maybe like a normal user, and then add them to the group to sudoers and see what happens. Does that make sense? So keep in mind, if you know your Linux at this point, which you should, guys. So this is what is this? This is the root of the file system, right? And then a lot of configuration files are located in etc, right? And etc. And then this is the file actually. So you can nano this one. You'll probably need sudo to modify that file, as it is a very important file, right? If you're a hacker and you get access to this, and the first thing you want to do is create an account and put it, and then go away. And then the next time that you got to say into the system or something, you will have the root privilege. Okay. Any questions about that? All right, sounds like clear for everyone. So yeah, so that's bullet 29. You can complete those. Adding in deleting users, so you can see this one here. So this is where I create that account like dummy1, dummy2. Essentially, oops. No, I mean, I don't know how to create it. You can create it with your own name. You can create your own name from now on. Don't use C, just use your own name. Put it in sudo, and that's it. I mean, you can do that. All right, so the process of managing local users and groups is straightforward and differs very little from most other Linux operating systems. Ubuntu and other Debian-based distributions encourage the use of add user. So there's actually, this is a tricky one. There's actually two commands in Linux, and they're confusing: add user and user add. So you can see how, for many years, I've known of these two accounts, and I still can't remember which one is which, right? Because they sound pretty much the same. Add user and user add. So I encourage you to play with both of them and then figure out which one is best, say, for the scripting problem. You know, they're not the same. So they use similar things, but one requires flags that the other one has by default, things like that. Okay? But essentially, they are for end users. Okay? User add and add user. So play with both. So they encourage the use of add user package for account management, and this may be because one account was created first, or one script was created first, and then another one. Keep in mind that all these things like add user, user add, all they are is scripts in the background. Okay, so they're just a whole bunch of scripts that have been made executable, and they have been placed in like in your environment variable. So whenever on the terminal you type something like that, essentially you're just calling add user, user add. So what I'm saying is you can create a third called user add 3, and it would be similar to this, and it's just a script in the background. So to add a user account, use the following syntax and follow the prompts to give the account a password and identifiable characteristics such as full name, phone number, etc. Some of these also, when you create the account, you can set things like requires a password on first login. Right? So you probably had this situation at some point in your life where you were given an account and you were told the very first time you log in, you will have to change the password. So that is a functionality that you can set with accounts. You can also set the expiration of the password. So you know how we here, for instance, I'm sure you guys at the university have to change your password every few months or so, right? Every 6 months. So you can do the same with this. So you can set the account and say, this should expire in 6 months or whatever it is. And so this is controls with these mechanisms. All right, so here's the example. Sudo add user username. Obviously, this is an administrative task that would require sudo as well. Sudo account. All right, to delete a user account and its primary group, use the following syntax: sudo del user, the usernames. Deleting an account does not remove the respective home folder. So remember that when like when you log into your so when you create whenever you log into a system, like a Windows system or whatever, you go into a desktop, right? You have your own desktop, which means you have your own home folder. So this is the same, right? So when you when you create an account here, it's going to create in the home folder a home directory. And so that is something that is associated with your account. So deleting an account does not remove the respective home folder. And that makes sense. So that's like maybe there was an employee, they left or something. And so you remove the account, but you still have the home folder files, and then you have to deal with that somehow. So maybe the best practice might be that you want to back it up or lock it up, for instance, or something like that by changing the permissions. So deleting an account does not remove the respective home folder. Okay. It is up to you whether or not you wish to delete the folder manually or keep it according to your desired retention policies. Remember, any user added later on with the same UID, GID as the previous owner will now have access to this folder if you have not taken the necessary precautions. Does that make sense? Right? So someone else, J Smith goes away, then another J Smith comes in. They, for some reason, have the same ID, and so they'll have access to the home folder. Okay. Okay. You may want to change these UID, GID values to something more appropriate, such as the root account. So that's a common practice, is just making that folder owned by root, for instance, and even relocate it to some other place. So now the task, so that was just kind of like giving you some background. Now the next task is create a dummy account to delete, such as dummy one. So create a dummy account to delete. All right. So you're going to do that. Go to the home directory to view the folder. Then you have ls-l. You can view the files, then delete it. After deleting it, check the home directory. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to change. If you notice, you should understand now that this command changes the ownership to root of that person's home folder, right? So if it's the user is dummy and they have a dummy folder, right? Now what you're going to do is you're going to change recursively the ownership of that folder and every file inside of it. Does this make sense, guys? This command over here. We've done this before. Then you make a directory called archived users, and essentially MV will just move that folder. Any questions on that one? So start working on this. All right, let's take a few minutes. All right, and try to implement this. I'll give you a few minutes to work on this, and then I'll move to the next part. All right, so work on that and see if you can make some progress and ask questions if you have them, and then we'll move to the next.